In a court ruling U.S. versus Fishbein, a man subjected to potential incineration while wearing another man's suit is entitled to $10,000 worth of airline tickets. It's an obscure ruling, but a very important one. To Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Hey, Thrive Loud listeners, Lou Diamond here. I hope you're doing spectacular. It's August of 2021. Hope you're enjoying the summer. I hope you're in as much shock and awe as I am that the year is flying by so quickly. And if you are taking some time to relax, enjoy it. And hopefully in nice weather, maybe a beach, maybe a park, maybe on a fun vacation, whatever it is. And in between, if you're looking for something fun to do, listen to some of the great episodes here on Thrive Loud. Every week, 3 some odd amazing guests that we have lined up for you. And this week is with no exception. We have S.G. Blaise, and this episode is pulled from Bedside Readings, Authors That Thrive, a fun program, and we haven't done this in a while, so we pulled over this episode. She's the author of The Last Lumenian. You're going to hear all about it in our conversation very shortly. And make sure to check us out and follow us everywhere. Follow us at Thrive Loud everywhere on social media, and check out thriveloud.com at your convenience. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy this fun episode pulled from Bedside Readings, Authors That Thrive with S.G. Blaise.
Welcome to Bedside Readings, Authors That Thrive, a podcast show that provides you exclusive access to top writers around the globe and how they are thriving through their writing, their passions, and their lives. Here's your host, Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to Bedside Readings, Authors That Thrive, connecting you to amazing authors that are thriving through their work and in their lives each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today, we have an amazing author who grew up under Soviet oppression. Her father smuggled in Hollywood videos so she could watch them, which instilled a sense of wonder and drove her imagination to create the characters and story in her latest book, The Last Lumenian. You're going to love her story as we connect today with S.G. Blaise. S.G., welcome to Authors That Thrive.
Thank you, Lou, for having me.
I am so excited to have you here today. Okay, so you have an interesting story. I've heard a little bit about it, read a little bit about it, but our listeners aren't so familiar with it. SG, tell us a little bit about, I guess, your early childhood years, where you came from, and then we'll move forward from there. That sound like a plan?
Absolutely. So I was born in a faraway land of castles, monarchies, and fallen dictatorships, also known as Hungary. And as you said, I grew up during the latter half of Soviet occupation. And it's a very interesting experience because when I was a child, I understood there were dangers, but I was also in a safe haven inside my family, right? Inside home. Yeah. So only looking back after years, the Soviet, Union fallen, and I look back and I realized just how close we danced to that dangerous line of, this could have ended bad. The black car could have showed up and taken my dad away, and that would be the end of it. But my parents, they did everything in their power to make us feel safe. But my grandma, for example, she would always tell us, don't say a name when you're talking on the phone. Do not mention anyone's name because you can get someone into trouble.
Yeah.
So there was no freedom of speech. There was no freedom of art. The movie theater, it was very depressing. There was some Russian movies,
right,
about a bear doing something in a forest for 3 hours. And that was entertainment. So to have that amazing opportunity to watch Hollywood movies, it was magical, you know.
SG, what were some of the early movies maybe that you saw when you were younger that you remember?
Oh, I remember a lot of them. It was Star Wars, a lot of Bruce Lee movies, Indiana Jones, Back to Future, the Rocky, a couple others that were, in the 70s, 80s. We watched a lot of action movies, which is awesome because when my husband and I, we had our celebrating Valentine's Day, we were actually watching the reboot of RoboCop movie. That was our romantic, celebration. Yeah, it's just, these were the movies that I was watching.
SG, so before we fast forward to how you moved on from there, what was your initial impression, I guess, of America when you were seeing all of this form of entertainment, obviously, versus the world that you were living in, and what that did for your creativity?
Oh, it's a great question. Watching the Hollywood and LA and all these other cities I could find on the map, but not, know much more than that about them. It was like, almost unable to imagine what life was like, because my country has 8 million people. I think LA has 6 million people,
Probably
and that's
more
just
now, but yeah.
probably more. So just to give you a perspective, we're a very, very small country, right? So a crowd for me is 10 people. When I came to America and we were living in Boston, my husband took me for shopping, and there was this shopping street that was closed down. And I think there were 3,000 people walking at the time. That was just an average Tuesday morning or whatever. And I felt shocked. So many people, I didn't know where to look. What am I doing with my hands? What's happening here? It was definitely a culture shock for me to go from a small country to a big, wide open country. And that was the impression that America is big, and it's free, and it's a land of opportunity.
SG, when did you come over to America?
It was 2001 when I got married. Now that was a whole process right there.
Well, let's rewind this. So we'll say that the Iron Curtain fell in the late 80s, right? In the early 90s.
I think it's 1991, but I'm not 91. An expert with dates, so don't quote me on that.
So the late 80s, early 90s. What was that like for that decade in between, in that period for you, in that transition from being behind the Iron Curtain to the world that you were dealing with in between?
It was revolutionary in one word. It was freeing. It was watching democracy, come to the stage and taking over. And we just had this hope that things gonna be better, things gonna be different. And it was just this really hopeful, positive feeling in the air. Everyone was excited. We were ready for something different, something better. We don't know what that's gonna be, but we were ready.
So you said there was a long story of eventually, I guess you got married and then eventually came over. What was the hurdles that you had to try to deal with before you came to Boston?
Just getting all those legal points, milestones achieving, to get the fiancé visa. For that, I had to go to a doctor exam where they were taking x-rays, chest x-ray and HIV test and blood test. And then you had to have a sealed envelope. Then you had to take it to the American embassy. And that was in a beautiful spot of Hungary. And I remember I was taken into this room and I was sitting there for an hour just waiting. And I had an appointment, but I was just sitting there waiting for someone to come and get me. And I was worried. I'm like, I don't know if, I did something wrong. What's going on? We were way past my appointment time. And then finally they took me. They never opened the envelope. They talked to me asked a couple of questions, and that was it. And then I had to take this envelope with me and show it on the American airport, where you would show your passport. And I had to give the envelope to the person who would stamp my passport, which I did. And the person was looking at me like, what do you want from me? Nobody knew what to do with this envelope. I don't know why. It became this obstacle. And then finally, after a couple hours of searching, someone knew what to do and took the envelope. I don't know what happened to it. It's a mystery. Hopefully it's living a good life somewhere in America. But it was, just the beginning to get the temporary, the fiancé visa. That was temporary entrance for one entry. Then we had to go get married and, of course, get the peace of justice, because we had our church wedding in Hungary. It's separate, so it was separate from legal. So we had the peace of justice wedding. That was our official. And then we had to, petition for green card. And we opted out not using a lawyer, which was, I don't know if it was a good decision or not, but this is all happening in 2001, 9/11. Right?
Okay. Right.
So there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of, extra bureaucracy going on. And my husband, he did fantastic. He found all the paperwork. He filled it out. We had letters from his friends, character testaments or something. And, he took care of it. I think it took 6 or 8 months, which was unheard of in normal times, to get the green card, the conditional green card. But under 9/11, it was like absolutely unheard of to get it that fast. And then after 2 years, we had to remove the condition part from the green card. So the joke was that, my husband could make a phone call and send me back because it was conditional, right? And removing the condition part from the green card was another fun experience, because I was 8 months pregnant. It was February, huge snowstorms in Boston, to the point that, cars would break down on the side of the road. And I have to go to this appointment. I cannot miss it. It was, I think, 11 a.m. in the morning. And we get to Boston. That's like 3-hour trip for us, because we're living outside of Boston. So we get there, and we don't get to be seen until late afternoon, like 4 p.m. And when you're 8 months pregnant, that's a long time to sit in a tiny little chair. It's a very long time, very uncomfortable. And then as I get to the window to have my condition, removed from the green card, the guy starts joking that he hopes we won't end up giving birth on the side of the road on the way home. And I'm looking at him like, you just named my biggest fear, because the snowstorm was like record bad that year. Luckily, we got home safe. And now I actually have a citizenship. I got it in 2012. So very happy to tell you that.
I want to bring this up to speed here. You grew up under oppression. You dealt in that period of time of a revolutionary move, had to deal with even the bureaucratic oppression of holding you back as a citizen. And something interesting, we're here on Authors That Thrive. We haven't talked about the fact that you've been writing yet. In fact, one could argue in this whole time that your writing was suppressed or oppressed, whichever way you want to look at it, and had yet to come out. And you had been inspired early on, even the way you opened the show, talking about coming from a land of historic castles and all that stuff. SG, when did the light bulb go off to say, I want to bring to life, I want to unleash the freedom of all that oppression that's been down on me, and that I want to start to write?
Well, that light bulb moment had to be around 2012, when we were in a European cross-country road trip. And I woke up in the middle of the night, jet lagged. I believe we were in Austria. And I had this amazing idea that I wrote down right there with the illumination coming from my phone. It was like pitch dark in the room, and I had my phone and I'm trying to type it, and I wrote down that idea, and that was my light bulb moment, that I had an idea that I have to write. But to backtrack, when I came to America in 2001, I had 12 years of passive English knowledge. That meant that I could understand people, and I'm more of a visual type of person, not audio. So I usually read better than speak. But we never practiced activating English in Hungary, because Hungarians were teaching Hungarians in English. It was an interesting process, let's put it that way. So I never, I could never really say full sentences or carry a conversation. So when I came to America, I could barely say a word or two. I could understand, and I had this desire to talk. I love talking. I don't know if you noticed, but I just couldn't.
Our listeners are loving the story. So yes, they are.
I hope so. I just couldn't carry a conversation. And it took a good 10 years, to activate the vocabulary and all that I knew, to the point where I started to think in English, which to me was...
And you were thinking in Hungarian, I guess.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, these two languages, they're not friends. They are not easy to translate from one another. There are so many things that get lost in translation because it's cultural or just the grammar is so different that it was not helpful for me to know the Hungarian thoughts. Right. And then try to translate it. So now at this point in my life, I think in English, but I also dream in English, which is an interesting phenomenon. So now I have an English accent when I go back to Hungary, and people think I'm a tourist.
So you literally were illuminated from your phone on your trip.
Correct.
You further and strengthen your ability to understand and then communicate and then obviously write better in English. Mm-hmm. And when did fingers go to keyboard or pen to paper? When did all of a sudden you started to say, hey, now I'm going to start writing this out in the path that is now the finished process of
that happened? CLL. Oh yeah, that happened a year after, which you could ask SG, why did you wait that long? That's because I spent a whole year complaining about how hard it is to get published. Right. And I was very eloquent about the difficulties that I had no idea, but I could hold, dissertation over the hardship to the point where my poor patient husband, he said, SG, how about you just sit down and write? And that was 2013, April. Okay. And for a whole month, it was like floodgates opening up. Right. I sat down, Lou, and from 8 in the morning till 10 in the evening, I was just writing. And I wrote 150 pages in like 30 days. I don't even remember doing anything but writing. And I know at some point I went and picked my son up from school. That means I actually dropped him off. There was some dinners and lunches that were cooked, but I don't remember. I just remember writing. And it was this unbelievable feeling of just freedom, just doing my passion, living my passion, and I couldn't stop. Of course, after 150 pages, I realized that I don't know anything about the writing craft. There was no structure, and everyone was very happy in my story. So that's not a story at all, if there is no conflict. So I actually started to look for places where I could learn how to write a good story. Mm-hmm. And that started my 6-year, writing journey of writing the book simultaneously as I'm studying and learning and figuring out what my writing process is.
I love it. So the writing process for you, are you the type of person that needed that structure and that format that said, I'm going to set this many hours a day to write, or it was just a little ad hoc and it came when it came?
I can tell you this. I experienced both. I did the flying by the seat of my pants. That was the first 150 pages. They were the worst first draft anyone can imagine. And then I also did the structure. And I think because I'm writing sci-fi fantasy genre, it's important to have a structure because there are multiple point of views. There are different obstacles. There's mystery going on. There is a lot of world building going on. So you really have to know where you're going. So I use structure as my roadmap, especially when I did revision, because I would write a draft that would be about 500 pages, which is pretty long, right? And then I would throw that out and restart from blank page, and try to recycle some of the good stuff, but also making it better, doing more character development, doing more world building. And then I would write another 500 pages, throw that one out, and I would do this 5 times altogether until I get to the point that I practice writing because that is almost 5 books, right? Or 6 books or whatever the draft was. Right. And also I got more comfortable with my writing voice, because you have to be comfortable with that. And when I sent the 5th or 6th draft to the first content evaluation, the editor lady, she wrote me back, the editorial memo, and she said she was shocked how well the lines, the plot lines were not only carried on, but they were done well, that they were finalized. So she didn't find any plot gaps. Doesn't mean that she didn't find anything else. That would be 16 pages of editorial memo. But she was just surprised of how well these lines were executed. That's not usual for a first draft. Well, that's because this was not my first draft. This was my 6th or 7th or whatever number we're at that point. And I think structure helped me, to tell the best story I can, because my goal is to entertain.
Okay, and SG, I was just about to ask that question. Without going to the specifics, we're going to give the plugs here. What do you want the listener and the future reader of The Last Lumenian to take away from them?
Well, first of all, I would like them to be entertained and captivated, but I would hope that they would come away with the message that you don't have to be perfect to be a hero. My hero, she's a 19-year-old princess named Lila, who is also a rebel in disguise. She is not perfect by any means. She can be strong. She has legendary magical abilities, but she cannot control that. And she struggles with claustrophobia-induced panic attacks that would, cause a lot of problems for her. And so it was very interesting to explore that side of her character, of how would she deal with external and internal struggles, and how would she overcome of these. And I think that made her a little bit more real,
Mm-hmm. SG, any of these characteristics or traits of your main character embedded in the author, or no?
That's a great question. I actually, I know 3 close family friends who struggle with certain forms of claustrophobia. Okay. And I saw them just, deal with this claustrophobia pop up for out of nowhere, basically. And it could be debilitating, one of the person, they get triggered by pitch darkness, pitch black darkness. So if we don't have night lights or something prepared, that could cause issues. And the other person, they get triggered by crowd, right? So that
large
was
crowds and
large crowd or being in a harness, feeling constricted. So that was I would watch them struggle. And anxiety, I mean, we can put labels, anxiety and all that, but we worry. I think 21st century human beings, we worry a lot. And I know I worry a lot on my own, probably over things I shouldn't, especially, you shouldn't sweat the small things, but it's easy not to. So I think there was a lot of experience I was drawing on when I wrote my book.
SG, and I didn't ask this question because I know that you're coming to me from San Diego, California, and you were in snowy Boston. I guess that didn't take long for you to just say, we need better weather. Was that the reason you were out west? Okay.
That was big.
How long have you been out west now?
So I think we're here 12 years now or something like that. It's going to be 13 years sometime later this year. And we spent about 7 years in Boston. And the turning point was, I think it was either November or December, and it was a snowstorm that was predicted soon enough that there was a warning going out that it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday, that everyone should leave their workplace by 10 or 11 in the morning, because this snowstorm is coming and it's going to be bad, which caused this mass flood of cars and people that, tried to get home on the highway. And my husband, he had to take like 3 highways just to get home. Basically, the snowstorm hit like 5 hours earlier than predicted. So all these people who were on the highway, they get stuck in snow. They ran out of fuel, right? And it turned into this apocalyptic scene of snow, cars, abandoned cars, and just craziness. And it took my husband at least 12 hours to get home. And I kept telling him, just go get a hotel. And he's like, no, I'm going to go home. This is not going to keep me from my family. So he was trying to get home for 12 hours.
Oh my goodness.
And it was bad.
I think, you gave up the cold weather and the snowstorms for, Southern California traffic, which we know can also be problematic. Maybe not that bad.
Yeah.
So I, before I bring us to the admin part of this, you've written this book. You've had a great experience writing it. Mm-hmm. Are there more books coming from SG Blaise?
Oh, absolutely. The second book is currently currently at the editor, and I'm developing the third book, and I hope to get this series to 12 books.
Oh wow, amazing!
It's going to be a saga.
I love that we've caught you here. Let's do this. Let's do the admin part of the show. Share with the listeners where people can find you, URLs, all that. We'll put it in the show notes, but it always gets more engagement when they hear it from you.
Absolutely. So they can find me on Instagram at SG Blaise Official, on Twitter at SG Blaise Author, and we have the Last Lumenian Facebook page.
Which is somewhere. We'll find that link.
Yes.
And there's the lastlumenian.com also. Too,
oh, yes. I keep forgetting that.
Forget where we can get the book and all that. Okay.
Yes. SG, and the book is available on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, Apple Book, Google Play, and Kobo. And as you said, as well as on the lastlumenian.com.
Everywhere you can get books. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, SG, you ready to go down Fun Street with us here on Authors That Thrive?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Okay. Since this is a perfect question to kick things off here, can you share with the listeners, do you have a movie that's like your all-time favorite, the one you could watch over and over again?
Princess Bride.
Oh, that's perfect. And I don't even have to go into the details why that is, but I'm sure you love it. Humorous, fun, romantic, great story. I love it.
Perfect.
It totally is. Okay, now we're going to do the speed round. I'm going to ask you something. I want the first thing that comes to your mind. These are things that lift you up. They make you feel good. They motivate you. They might arguably make you thrive. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Of late, about now, a song that you love to hear that pumps you up or keeps you motivated.
It's Radioactive from Imagine Dragons.
Ooh, I love that. A favorite food that's not a dessert.
French fries.
A favorite dessert.
Cheesecake. They go well together. No, they're not. They're not.
No, yes, they do. They absolutely do. An activity you wish you did more of.
Listening to music lately.
Okay. An activity you wish you did less of.
Reading.
Reading.
I read too much.
If I could snap my fingers, SG, and you could be anywhere in the world, where are you?
Hawaii.
Oh, that's a good spot. I wouldn't want to be there. SG Blaise, the Last Lumenian. What a great story. So glad that you've, the hurdles you've had to overcome, the lessons you've had to learn, the work you put in to bring your book to life and make it happen. And now you're sharing with the world with the goals to bring us more. The Last Lumenian. Thank you so much for coming on Authors That Thrive today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
Thank you for listening to Authors That Thrive, brought to you by Bedside Reading. To learn more about today's guest, head on over to bedsidereading.com. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, or follow us everywhere on social media at Bedside Reading.